Yes, the award-winning Turn It Up. Welcome Chris Lawrence, the West Tigers legend.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Debut. Let's talk about your debut. 17 against the Broncos. How's that?
Yeah, 06. It was pretty crazy. I got picked to go up as an 18th man for a pretty experience from Tim Sheens, and then I think wasn't the captain's run. I think it was a couple of days before, just doing some opposed stuff, and Paul Federer tears his hammy. Everyone goes down, he comes across, and then Sheensy comes and taps me on the shoulder and goes, "Looks like you're playing, kid." And had to rush my dad home from work. Didn't have a contract. I wasn't 18. I couldn't sign. I had to get a contract sorted, and 3 days later at Suncorp, yeah, pretty surreal. Probably wasn't until warm up when you saw the crowd it really hit me, and then it's like, wow, this is first grade, but it's, yeah, unreal experience.
So I remember watching you. It was like only a couple of weeks prior to that, playing for St Greg's. You were playing fullback.
Yeah.
And what was it like? School, going to school. What all your classmates?
Oh, it was unreal. It was the next day I had a HSC trial exam at 9 a.m. So I pretty much had to fly home, go in, and all the boys were.
Were you studying on the plane coming home?
Yeah. So I was studying. So I was sat next to Chris Harrington, who's a good mate, an absolute legend, and
but not a scholar.
Yeah. But he's sitting down. I just didn't know what to do. So I got out on the way home after the game, got out study books, and Heine goes, "Mate, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm studying." Yes, mate. Put that away. Enjoy the win. worry about that tomorrow.
Here's a race form. Yeah. A race form.
So it was pretty hard to concentrate in the exam, but it was awesome. Like your mates who you play footy with at St Greg's and go to school with, and see how they were like just as happy, as I was to play. Like just for them to experience that, and then probably not so much brought me back down to earth, but that afternoon, as you do, young kids in Campbelltown, we just went to the local Macca's, and after an exam sat and just mucked around, and then the cameras followed me down, and we were playing up to it, weren't doing anything crazy wrong, but then the next day the club sort of said, "Look, I know you haven't done anything wrong, but just here's an indication, like it's not, you've got to be careful now, like of what you do and say in public." So it's very, very quick lesson about being in the public eye.
What about the good things? More attention from the girls after that?
At an all-boys school.
Even better.
That's a classic.
But it was different. It was literally out of nowhere. So you're thrown in the limelight, and I didn't know how to. I suppose you don't know how to handle it in that sense. And then played against the Storm week after and got taught a lesson, and marked up against, I think, in the second half, up against Greg Inglis after we were down. we were down by, I think we were down by 20, and then said, "All right, Rowdy, you go across and mark Inglis at some point." And to be honest, it was a great lesson because you're on such a high from the first game. You get to beat the Broncos, and then you realise how far you are from the best in the game, and it's a good measuring stick. Okay, I need to try to work my way to, this is where you need to get to be a first grader.
Well, we spoke to Josh Morris
last week.
And he said...
He had to change his whole training.
Yeah.
He said, Greg Inglis, he said, "Well, I'm not strong enough. I need to go and get stronger. I can't compete."
Well, he was the best, as a centre and a winger. So it's like, that's the measuring stick. What do I have to do to try to match him and try to compete with him?
Who did you look up to when you were coming through as a young fella? Who did you look up to and aspire to be?
Oh, there's always a number of guys. I got Bradley Clyde's signature when I was young, and as a young kid, when you get something like that, you hold on to it, which is pretty cool. These two guys here definitely looked up to, and when you see these guys do things, you go down, you're practicing like Joey's banana kick. Everyone's doing when he brought the banana kick out. Freddie's left foot. As I started coming through the grades and started being a centre and a winger, I really followed Mark Gasnier and Matt Gibley really closely. I just watched their game, everything they did, just try to do those extras, the little shimmy out with the flick pass, just to pick those things up. And that's what you do. You follow players who you look up to and try to pick things out of your game.
Well, you can see in all these clips the speed that you had. At some stage, you were an athlete before you were a footballer, or at the same time. Did you have to choose between whether you wanted to pursue being an athlete and rugby league? I
probably would never have made it in athletics. Yeah, did really like athletics when I was younger. Sprints I was really good at. Probably was better at the long jump and some of the jumps. Probably as my body type, my old man was skinny and turned into a front rower, so I don't think I would have ever had the body type to maintain athletics. But it was a really good tool to use coming through to again have that speed and power into first grade. And it was definitely something in the off season, in the pre-season, to when you don't get a lot of time during the year, to go back to try to redefine some of those tools.
What about some of the injuries? You had some horrendous injuries. Tell us about the head clash you had in New Zealand.
Yeah, that was. I remember. I think it was 2 days before first trial, so it wasn't even a proper game, and just training one. Wasn't even a full contact training one, just one of those things. And had a head clash with Benny Madalino, and someone punched through the line, and I've lifted my head, he's dropped his head, and straight away I didn't know how serious it was. And first thing was like,
Oh, so it didn't knock you out?
Did knock me out, yeah. So it did knock me out. I was fully conscious, and I thought, I think I broke my cheekbone. And then I just felt after a minute or two, my whole face just felt like it was caved in, all the blood sort of rushing down the back, and I'm struggling to breathe. And all the thoughts race through your head when you have things like the first thing. It's like, it was Madge's first year. We got towed up all pre-season. I'm like, I've got 3 months of pre-season. I'm going to be out. And then I'm off contract. I'm like, straight away, is this the end? Because I'm 30.
But the ambulance didn't come for an hour or something.
Yeah, it was an ambulance strike, unfortunately, in New Zealand on the day. So, the physio
look at it.
kept saying, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And, to be honest, I did panic for a bit there because I couldn't breathe. And Ronnie Palmer was really good. He sat with me and I sort of just had to calm my breathing down and just, in and out and just get the air in. It was about an hour, and when the ambulance came, I think Robbie Farah gave them an earful about getting him some pain medication or something like that. So, yeah.
And there was another one, your hip.
Yeah.
That one kept you out for a while too, didn't it?
Yeah, the hip
you dislocated your hip?
Hip was 2011. Again, I sort of still...
Well, this is it here.
Now, yeah.
Oh.
I still don't know how... I've watched it so many times, and just the angle to be able to, have that happen. And straight away, Leedsy, the physio at the time, said, what happened? I said, dislocated hip. And he said, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure.
And they couldn't get it back in, huh?
Couldn't get back in for about 2.5 hours. So I was in the hospital afterwards. Oh. And probably the toughest thing about that was once they put me out and then went back in, a week or two, just felt like a big cork. It wasn't actually, the pain wasn't that bad, but it was more the uncertainty. They said if your hip's out for more than 2.5 hours, there's a chance you lose blood flow to the hip, which means hip replacement, which means, career over. But you don't know that until 12 weeks in. So the first bit of your rehab, it's all the uncertainty. So I really thank the club and the medical staff around me, because I sort of put that aside and I said, well, take my mind off it, give me a goal every day. So I actually became a running joke with the players at the time, because I would literally know what day my rehab. I'm like, I would set myself a goal in playing. I'm get back and play in 90 days, and just set myself a goal just to take my mind off it. So, which it did, and I don't think I got back in 90 days, but I got back pretty quick. Probably came back a bit too quick. Didn't get everything right, but it was a good lesson, and it allowed me just to not focus on the uncertainty.
Do you have any good memories?
Like from Australia.
Yeah.
What are your best memories? What do you?
Yeah, I think obviously your debut's always, and debut scoring a try is pretty special. My first Test match playing New Zealand, Eden Park, was pretty special, and then got to play in the Four Nations final in 2011. Played I think all Tests in that series, and that was probably a special one because that was the year I did my hip at the start of the year, so I'd actually came back from my hip and then played all the Test matches that year. And I think not only to play for Australia to win a Four Nations, but I think for me just the hard work I put in to get back. So that was definitely one of my more fond memories.
Getting back to the injuries, do you carry any trauma from that?
Not so much trauma.
Mental scars?
No, I wouldn't say mental scars. Definitely the physical, pain of things every now and then. I think. When everyone said to me after the face injury, like, why are you coming back? Do you have any, are you scared of coming back and injuring again? And I had reassurance from the doctor that there wasn't an increased risk. That helped. And I don't know, there was some burning desire for me. Again, I was back in my career. I wasn't getting any faster, stronger, and I wasn't going to play for longer. Why did I come back? For me, it was I wanted to at least give it a crack, and then if I couldn't come back, at least I said I could have done everything.
And you went to the back row then?
I was already in the back row, so I was already...
How was the difference going from centre to back row?
I think that when I went to back row, it was the right time. After my hip, probably 2 years after my hip, I lost a bit of speed with the hip, but I had a lot of hammy injuries and a really bad ankle injury, which pretty much ruled me out for a whole year. And it was those injuries that really dropped my speed, and I knew I had to obviously adapt my game, and that got me into the back row. And the way the game was going, a lot of the centres weren't getting as many ball. The block plays out the back and it was just going full-back to winger, so centres weren't getting early ball, so you weren't in the game anyway. In the back row, you felt like you were more in the game. Yes, higher work rate. Back end of my career, really struggled as the speed of the game got a lot quicker to do a good 80 minutes in the back row, where I struggled, and then end up, coming full circle, finishing I think the last 5 games back in the centres, and it was like, how good is this? Just chilling back in the centres.
Yeah, smart decision of retiring, because you can see the natural progression: centre, back row, front row.
Or reverse.
But with the positive traits that you would have picked up through not just your injuries, but playing alongside you and watching your career unfold, super professional. Have you taken those traits into your life after footy?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the one thing you do. Regardless of all the things you do in the footy field, it shapes the person you are going to be. And a lot of people say, what if this didn't happen or if that didn't happen, but it builds character. It gives you the tools to again be successful in whatever the endeavour is beyond footy. So I definitely, not like I would like to go through all those things, both the good and the bad sort of things, but it does shape you. Builds the resilience and I suppose gives you a bit more gratitude. It does humble you, the game. Footy's a great way, a great leveller. You could be on top of the world one week and brings you back down. So being able to...
Thanks, Greg.
Maintain that humility and, just to keep getting better. I think that's the one thing, probably out of everything, that the one thing, if you're not trying to improve and constantly get better, you get left behind in the game of sport. So if you take that, to outside of footy, you're going to obviously grow whatever you do.
What about the Tigers at the moment? There's a lot of talk about Leichhardt, where that sits. We're going to a game this afternoon that's out at Campbelltown, where you're from. Where's their home? Where is the Tigers? Where's their future?
Yeah, look, I think that it's one of the hardest things, because you see obviously the benefit of playing at a ground like Leichhardt, just the atmosphere and how it does lift the players. But you've also got obviously the Macarthur region, where I grew up, and it's just such a growing region, and that is where the big junior pool comes. Compared to when I played there, I think the junior comp is almost doubled or tripled. There's so many good juniors coming out of there, there's so many people living out of there, and I think there needs to be an investment in Western Sydney, Southwestern Sydney, in the Macarthur region. I think you can't let Leichhardt go. You've got to have some bit of heritage and maintain part of that. So how they balance where you play your home games, again, I'm not quite sure. Down the track, obviously, in a perfect world, if money wasn't an issue, you'd have a purpose-built stadium out of Western Sydney that is solely for the Tigers. But obviously, money doesn't grow on trees. But I think the club has recognised, particularly this year, the need to really invest in that region. Going back there and showing that obviously not only in the region, but obviously the juniors coming through as well. What
about your footy team, the actual footy team? Are they on the rise? You've got young Lachlan Galvin that's come in and played a star in a couple of games. Buller, Benji Marshall as the head coach. Can you see the trajectory heading towards where they want to go to? Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably the first time, probably since when Benji, Robbie came through, that you have got a good crop of juniors through, your Harold Matthews and your SG Ball that have played together with a few seasons, that you can start to build a squad around, and in 3 or 4 years' time you can have them making up half the squad. So I think now's the opportunity to develop them and give them that opportunity. That's probably one thing over the last 10 years, right or wrong, where it's fallen down, is that I think beyond from last year, I think the youngest local junior was Dave Nofaluma at 26 or something. So where's that gap? We've lost players, not like we're not developing them. Yeah. Where are we losing them, and how can we retain them, and how can we show them a pathway where they can see a future at the Tigers? I think that's what they're trying to do and starting to do. And I think if you start to, again, put good people around guys like Lockie Galvin, because they can't come into first grade automatically know what it takes to be a first grader. So guys like Appy, Dave Clemmer, John Bateman, they've probably got the most important job of the Tigers in the club's history, because the standards they set off the field are what this young group are going to see as this is what it takes to be a first grader for the next 15, 20 years. So how they apply themselves, the professionalism, the standards they set are going to be what those Lockie Galvins take through, and hopefully to a long-term successful club.
What about, did he coach you? in City Country.
Yeah, had a couple
Captain.
of.
That was the last captain.
You were captain.
Yeah, there you go.
That was captain
It
and
was the
coach.
last.
Yeah, it was a really good. We were.
Mate, no one's watching, so just tell us.
Yeah. We had. I think everyone wrote us off. I think we were like 10-1. You know, all the team that was probably going to get picked, well, they're not playing or in the countryside. And we did our come together and did all the great community work, obviously, that the Footy does, and go, let's go out, let's have a team get together. Where should we go? There's nowhere to go. And then a few of us go, I think there's a bar down the road that does some good salsa dancing. So I think
That was the start of salsa night.
So we go to the start of
Josh
salsa.
Mansour.
Yeah, Josh Mansour. I think a couple of last ones out that night. I think me, you, Butsy, and Sauce. And then we got to, I think,
Dancing.
Always.
I think everyone was. It was a great night.
That's a yes.
But it was an enjoyable
That's
week.
a kind yes.
We came out and I think we beat country by 30 points and won the game.
Salsa.
Yeah,
It's a key.
salsa dancing. So
What about the business now? Tell us what you're doing now.
yeah, so fortunate enough to start an education company whilst I was playing, One Training. So we do unique and tailored learning for specific groups. Started doing a lot of work with athletes and helping in their transition. Now that I've finished, we've been able to help and got some state and federal contracts to work with different groups who work with school students doing traineeships, school leavers, those looking to transition into careers, and do a lot of work with marginalised job seekers. So those who have been out of work for various reasons, helping building confidence and industry skills and placing them to work. So it's really rewarding. As I spoke about, I suppose, the constant growing and learning. It's probably those characteristics that we see trying to show with all the groups we work with, and being able to see people who have been out of work or haven't had any completed qualifications in their family, being able to help them complete a qualification, getting work's pretty rewarding.
Well, his performance today might be out of work, so you might want to help Freddie. Thanks for
You
your
go and
time.
do my job at Campbelltown the Savo.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.